Housing Development Program is number one and the best. Housing Development Program, number one. Number one. Housing Development Program is number one and the best. Housing Development Program, number one. Housing Development Program in Nigeria. Housing Development Program in Africa. Housing Development Program and the globe. Number one. Housing Development Program.
The frequency of building collapses in Nigeria is raising a question of quality in the building construction industry, as well as the efficiency of work of the relevant state agencies. The activities of unskilled craftsmen in building industry have smeared the image of the building profession in the recent past, leading to questions like why and how buildings collapse and what can be the possible solutions to this menace. Welcome to Housing Development, where we talk about everything housing, its affordability and accessibility to Nigerians. On today's episode, we'll be looking at building collapse in Nigeria, the long list and the way forward. Also the role of artisans in housing delivery, among others. Before we dive in, let's see the news making rounds in this sector. As always, I am Flora Ani, your housing diva. I will be back.
Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDAN, has congratulated Honorable Moruf Akinderu Fatai for his reappointment as the Commissioner for Housing, Lagos State. This was disclosed in a statement released by the Executive Director, Festus Adebayo, in Abuja. According to HDAN, the Honorable Commissioner's reappointment is undoubtedly a reward for his outstanding performance during his first term, while also congratulating Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu on reappointing Honorable Moruf Akinderu Fatai as the next Housing Commissioner. HDAN urged the Lagos State government to build on the achievement of their first tenure and ensure that affordable housing is built for the people. A building with over 500 rooms have collapsed in the Ketu area of Lagos State. At least 2 persons are currently battling for their lives at a private hospital after the school turned residential building partially collapsed on Saturday. The building, housing hundreds of residents, located at Agboye Estate at Oduton Street, Ketu, first caved in on Saturday afternoon following hours of rainfall that greeted most parts of Lagos. On Sunday afternoon, as residents were still trying to salvage their belongings, the building crumbled again, destroying another structure inside the compound before collapsing completely. No fewer than 150 houses have been destroyed after a flood surged through the towns of Agwanrogo, Rikos, Bauchi Road, and Naraguta communities of Jos North Local Government of Plateau State as a result of a downpour on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Tanko Yakubu Al-Hassan, a resident of Bauchi Road, told reporters that though no life was lost, the flood destroyed property and washed away valuables, causing the displacement of over 150 families due to its enormity. The displaced individuals, who now have nowhere to live after losing all their possessions in the storm, are lodging with neighbors, friends, and family. He appealed to the government to come to the rescue of the affected communities.
For more on housing, finance, and construction, visit www.africanhousingnews.com. On Voices on the Streets, Nigerians express their dissatisfaction on the rise of building collapse urging the necessary agencies to tackle this havoc raiding the nation as soon as possible. For many, it's not just becoming homeless, but losing loved ones and valuables. Let's have a look.
There are many issues, and the vast majority or the major reason would be the prevalence of quacks in the construction industry in Nigeria. That would be the major reason. There is also a huge issue with the monitoring of the compliance with building codes in Nigeria. We haven't done very well with that. Supervision is a big issue. The quality of some of the materials that we use and the construction methods that we use are very, very obvious reasons why we have a prevalence of building collapse.
A lot of people who go into building collapse, you go into building construction, especially the private sector, you will see that in most cases they don't employ the services of professionals that are in the field. If you go to the site of a building collapse and listen to the stories and history around that particular site, in most cases you hear that engineers or adequately qualified engineers were not involved. You hear situations where it was a brother's son or a brother's cousin who had nothing to do with construction that was in charge of supervision and things like that. So I think we need to have the proper laws and apply the laws when we have somebody violating it. And they can stop it. Again, recall that most of the buildings that is being done by government, where they use appropriate engineering personnel, engineers and technicians and so on, you hardly hear of any collapse.
First and foremost, to limit or to reduce building collapse, we have to have an efficient and effective mortgage system, whereby there will be a pool of funds for the right kind of investors to put into building. The second problem probably is also the issue of enforcement of the rules and regulations. Of course, there are a lot of rules, there are a lot of regulations as regards building, codes and practices, but the issue is the enforcement. A lot of buildings are being constructed without the qualified personnel supervising them.
The issue of building collapse in Nigeria has been on the increase in recent times. There are frequent reports of collapsed buildings in major Nigerian cities like Lagos, Abuja, Anambra, Port Harcourt, and a host of others. In an attempt to find lasting solutions to tackle the challenges, this report examines the list of building collapse cases in Nigeria, causes and specific areas the stakeholders in the building industry, the government, and the general public must address. Let's take a listen.
November 2021 saw a tragic collapse of a 21-story building in Ikoyi, Lagos State, Nigeria. An incident described as one of the most tragic of all cases that left many in awe. A few months after, another 7-story building collapse was recorded in Banana Island in the same Ikoyi. Just a few weeks ago, Enugu, Anambra, and Abuja also experienced a similar fate. The Building Collapse Prevention Guild once reported that Lagos State, a high collapse rate with over 326 buildings caving in the last 49 years, which represented 59.05% of the total of 553 recorded cases in the country during this period. Specifically, between 1974 and April 13, 2023. Aside the generally known causes of building collapse such as natural hazards, material fatigue, aging, terrorist attacks and design flaws, human error in construction has become a prominent factor in this problem as well. For Professor Yohana Izam, the president of the Nigerian Institute of Building, professionalism is key and must be enforced by the relevant agencies.
I think the principal arena of collapse is the building site.
And we think that the events that happen on a building construction site needs enhanced regulation, needs enhanced monitoring. We need laws in this country that will be enforceable. We need also to be more serious about professionalization of the building industry. In other words, I'm talking here about the activities of quacks in the industry. Once you continue to have an all-commerce affair in the industry where everybody thinks it's a builder, definitely we'll continue to have this problem. Building is a technology. You need special training and you need regulatory frameworks to ensure that in this country, people who are saddled with the job of constructing our buildings are people who are well trained and are certified by law to carry out this function.
Town planner Ashiru Olugbenga, National Secretary NITP, says lack of professional regulation is another area that needs to be addressed.
The first angle that I will look at the issue of building collapse is that our professionals engaged in the construction of building? If no, why? If yes, now, do they go through proper supervision from the agencies that are required to supervise them? Because they are professional doesn't mean that they don't need adequate supervision. And that's why we like to commend the Lagos, Ogun, and some other states that are already having this building control mechanism. So, whether we like it or not, 90% of buildings supply into the building market are through private sectors. Are they affordable? For it to be affordable, they contact the layman, the Bababiliki, the Babataye staff on the road to do the construction for them. And professionalism is not taken into consideration. And that could be a factor responsible for the building collapse.
Town planner Idris Alako, former Lagos State Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, noted that building within the stipulations of the law is one of the ways to avert cases of building collapse. He urged everyone involved to be sincere and follow the right policy.
The best way to address is to stick to the laws, the rules, and do things by the letters, by the laws. There are regulations, we have enough regulations and policies to guide us in this space. And let's be sincere with ourselves. Let's build right, build within the ambit of the law. That's all we are saying. With that, we'll be able to minimize to a very large extent the incidence of building collapse if we are ready to build right. You don't cut corners. You get your documents in place before you start construction. You get the relevant authorization from the relevant agencies. You allow government agencies to supervise your construction activities all through the construction years.
What has become of the building state in the country? This question has been on the lips of Nigerians over the last 4 decades. Indeed, this array of incidents does present an opportunity for the government to improve its response to such disasters, deal with the responsible parties, and prevent a reoccurrence.
It's good news. Are you a stakeholder in the built environment, or you are looking for an authentic, credible source for housing and construction news in Africa? You now have an opportunity. Africa International Housing Show has now created a unique opportunity for you by establishing a full-fledged housing television, the first of its kind in Africa. You can now access information on home ownership, rental, building materials, finance, real estate and insurance, among others, all on Housing TV Africa, channel 149 on StarTimes.
You're still watching Housing Development. After the break, Festus Adebayo will be sitting with the chairman of Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria, Builder Samson Opaluwah, to discuss the need for more artisans in Nigeria and how the government should collaborate to reduce the cost of construction through local and alternative building materials.
Now, in the building construction ecosystem, you have at the apex, on site, building site, you have the builder. Then you have the building technologist next to the builder. Then you have the technicians. Then you have the artisans. Now, all these people are those that manage the site from the day there is clearing of site to the day there is handover of a completed building to the owner. Now, we have discovered that Nigeria focused on developing the top echelon, and the lower echelon, which is the technician and the artisans, were not by policy encouraged to grow. And CORBON is the Sector Skills Council of Building Construction. So every artisan that is operating on the building site is regulated by CORBON as the Sector Skills Council. And that is why we piqued interest. It might interest you to know that the number of artisans Nigeria require now, we have less than 5%.
Oh, no wonder why people go to Togo, Cameroon to bring Tyler.
Yes.
How do we bridge this gap?
So the only way to bridge this gap is to go into massive training of artisans.
I think that's why we interest the new minister.
It doesn't take a lot to have to train people that we need to be competent artisans. The word we use there is competency. In the formal sector, you will say a pass exam, but in the informal sector, it is when you are competent. And we have levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you under the NSQF 6, 7, up to level 11 now. And level 11 is supposed to be the highest, and that's equivalent to somebody who has a PhD in the formal sector. Okay? So CORBON has developed what we call the National Occupational Standard for 6 trades in the building construction.
What are the trades?
Carpentry, masonry, electrical installation, welding, painting, which is tiling. That's number 6. So these are the 6 trades. But we are also presently developing scaffolding and formwork. All these are areas that people are being trained, and then we now have this National Occupational Standards. So wherever you are, in whatever location you are, once you have this NOS, you are able to train your apprentice. And then we have what we call assessors. They will come and assess. If that person is competent, we will license him. And that is the way to go. Now, to arrest the immediate situation, like I said, nationwide, we need to produce within the next 1 year 900,000.
900,000.
900,000
artisans.
Artisans. And that will mean that by the time you take 100,000, spread it over a state. You understand? By the time you spread 900,000 all over the 36 states, but of course, you know, the level of economic activity and construction differs. Yeah. So there will be a weighting system, but it will affect the entire country.
How do you train those who cannot read and write?
We don't need to read and write.
Okay.
What we want is skill. Okay? So the moment you can identify, in fact, there was a program that we collaborated and ran in the northern part of this country in Hausa language. So you don't need English. You can take your tape, you can identify the measurement even in your language. So 1 is 1, 2 is 2.
Can we know in different languages?
Of course. What we are assessing and what we want on site is skill. So if you can identify the drawing and you can translate it physically.
Adebayo there with builder Samson Opaluwah as they discuss the need for more artisans in Nigeria and how the government should collaborate to reduce cost of construction through local and alternative building materials. Stay with me, I'll be right back.
It's good news. Are you a stakeholder in the built environment, or you are looking for an authentic, credible source for housing and construction news in Africa? You now have an opportunity. Africa International Housing Show has now created a unique opportunity for you by establishing a full-fledged housing television, the first of its kind in Africa. You can now access information on home ownership, rental, building materials, finance, real estate and insurance, among others, all on Housing TV Africa, channel 149 on StarTimes.
The Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, says he is committed to the efforts required to break the scourge of failure and achieve historic success in the housing sector. This was made known when he received a delegation from Katsina State, led by the Executive Governor of Katsina State, His Excellency, Dr. Diko Rada, on Tuesday in Abuja. While recounting the ties that bind himself and the governor of Katsina, Dangiwa commended Diko for the massive strides that he has recorded since becoming governor. His tireless efforts in improving security, education, agriculture, infrastructural development, and the welfare of the citizens, which he described as a testament to his vision for a prosperous Katsina.
Since independence, Nigeria has struggled to provide decent housing for citizens. Despite numerous plans, initiatives, projects, and institutions introduced over the last 60 years, progress has been very limited. With rapid population growth, these unsuccessful and suboptimal efforts have led to accumulation of a significant housing shortage. Today, the housing sector remains far from where it should be in terms of meeting the needs of millions of Nigerians for decent shelter, while contributing as a catalyst for economic growth, job creation, and poverty eradication. This is the challenge that His Excellency has put on my shoulders. With the grace of Allah, we are committed to putting in the hard work necessary to break the jinx of failure and achieve historic success. As part of our efforts to achieve this, we have outlined a series of housing reform initiatives in line with the renewed hope agenda for housing and urban development of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GSFR. We plan to embark on a stakeholder engagement drive with state governors nationwide towards achieving it. As my dear visionary, progressive and reform-minded governor, I would like you to consider the rapid implementation of the initiatives, especially in the urban development initiatives that the ministry will have. This includes championing the adoption and passage of mortgage foreclosure laws by the Katsina State House Assembly. This legislative action is key to creating an enabling environment for private sector investment in housing, stimulating economic growth, and providing our citizens with access to affordable housing.
He further encouraged the Katsina State government to deepen collaboration with key housing agencies, including the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, the Federal Housing Authority, and the Family Homes Funds to increase access to affordable housing for Katsina indigents. Reacting, the governor of Katsina State assured the minister of his readiness to collaborate and support urban renewal.
And I want to assure the two honorable ministers that Katsina State, on official note, I'm talking on official note now, that is ready to collaborate with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Urban renewal is one of the major priorities of our administration. We want to expand our city. As I speak to you today, we are in the process of developing Katsina Master Plan, which has expired for the last 30 years. So our renewal
is one of the major focus of our administration, and affordable housing to staff and other people in the state is also one of our priorities. So we are seeking collaboration with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to tap from your experiences to help us in achieving our goal of renewing our cities and towns in the state.
The governor congratulated the Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Development and the State's Minister of Housing for their well-deserved appointments. He urged the ministry directors and staff to give them maximum cooperation to achieve their mandate.
Nigerians deserve a roof over their heads, and these roofs must be one that can stand the test of time. Also, the need to enhance the living condition of people in any society cannot be overemphasized. The health status of the people has serious consequences on the economy of the country where they reside, as a healthy workforce is a requirement for a vibrant economy. That is our advocacy on this program, that every Nigerian is housed at the most affordable rate. That is the much I can bring on today's episode. Make it a date with us same time next week. I remain your housing diva, Flora Annie. Do have a great day.